Emerald City of Oz. Uncle Henry. Dorothy lived on a farm in Kansas with her Aunt Em and her Uncle Henry. It was not a big farm, nor was it a very good one. Sometimes the rain did not come when the crops needed it, and then everything withered and dried. Once a cyclone carried away Uncle Henry's house, and he had to build another one. He was a poor man, and he had to mortgage the farm to get money to pay for the new house. Then his health became an issue, and he was too weak to work. The doctor ordered him to take a sea voyage, and he went to Australia and took Dorothy with him. That cost a lot of money, too. Uncle Henry grew more poor every year. The crops raised on the farm were only enough to buy food for the family. He could not pay the mortgage. At last, a banker who loaned him money said that if he did not pay, his farm would be taken away from him. This worried Uncle Henry a great deal. Without the farm, he would have no way to eat. He was a good man, and he worked in the fields as hard as he could, with Aunt Em, who also did all the housework, with Dorothy's help. They were just not making ends meet. Dorothy was a lot like a lot of other girls. She was loving and usually sweet-tempered, and had a pretty face with soft eyes. Life was a serious thing to Dorothy, and a wonderful thing. She had encountered many strange adventures in her short life, more than most girls of her age. Aunt Em said she thought fairies must have marked Dorothy at birth. She had wandered into so many strange places and had always been protected by some unseen power. Uncle Henry thought his little niece was merely a dreamer. He could not quite believe all the strange stories Dorothy told them of the Land of Oz, which she had visited several times, or so she said. He did not think she was lying, but he thought she had dreamed all those astonishing adventures, and that the dreams had been so real, she thought they were true. Whatever the explanation might be, it was clear Dorothy had been absent from her Kansas home for several long periods of time. She disappeared unexpectedly and always returned safe and sound, with amazing tales of where she had been and the unusual people she had met. Her uncle and aunt listened to her stories eagerly, and in spite of their doubts, began to feel that Dorothy had gained a lot of experience and wisdom that were rare at her age. Most of Dorothy's stories were about the Land of Oz, with its beautiful Emerald City and the lovely ruler named Ozma, who had become a faithful friend to Dorothy. When Dorothy talked about the riches of this fairy country, Uncle Henry would sigh. He knew that only one of the great emeralds so common in Oz would pay for all of his debts. Dorothy never brought any of the jewels home with her, and their poverty became worse every year. When the banker told Uncle Henry that he had to pay the money in 30 days or leave the farm, the poor man was in despair. He knew he could not possibly get the money. He told Aunt Em what the banker demanded, and she was shocked and angry Henry kept this as a secret. Then she said they must be brave and do the best they could. Em wanted to move away to earn a living somewhere else. But they were getting older, and she feared they could not take Dorothy with them. They didn't tell Dorothy the bad news for several days. It was a hard subject to talk about. Then, one morning, she heard Aunt Em softly crying with her Uncle Henry trying to comfort her. Dorothy asked them what was the matter. "We're going to lose the farm," replied her uncle sadly. "We have to move and find jobs in the city or somewhere else now." Dorothy listened seriously. She had never understood how desperately poor they had become. "We will be fine," said her aunt, stroking the girl's hair tenderly, "and we love you as if you were our own child. We are heartbroken to think that you must live in poverty because of this farm." "What could I do to earn money?" asked Dorothy. They talked for a while about their options, which included Dorothy doing housework to earn money. Dorothy smiled. "Wouldn't it be funny," she said, "for me to do housework in Kansas when I'm a princess in the Land of Oz?" A princess? They both exclaimed, astonished. Oh yes, Ozma made me a princess some time ago, and she has begged me to come live in the Emerald City, said Dorothy. Her Uncle Henry and Aunt Em looked at each other in amazement. Then Uncle Henry said, Do you suppose you could manage to return to this fairyland? Oh yes, replied Dorothy. I could do that easily. How so? Asked Aunt Em. Ozma sees me every day at 4 o'clock in the magic picture. She can see me wherever I am, no matter what I am doing. And at that time, if I make a certain secret sign, she will send for me by means of the magic belt. I captured the magic belt from the Elf King. In the wink of an eye, I would be an Ozma in the palace. Uncle Henry and Aunt Em were silent for some time after Dorothy had spoken. Finally, Aunt Em said with another sigh of regret, If that is the case, Dorothy, perhaps you should go live in the Emerald City. It will break our hearts to lose you, and we will miss you very much, but right now, this might be the best thing. I'm not so sure about this, said Uncle Henry, shaking his gray head doubtfully. These things all seem real to Dorothy, but I'm afraid our girl won't find this fairyland like she has dreamed it to be. I would be unhappy to think she was wandering among strangers. Dorothy laughed at Uncle Henry's speech, and then she became very quiet. She could see how all of this money trouble was worrying her aunt and uncle, and knew that unless she found a way to help them, their future lives would be miserable and unhappy. She knew she could help. She had already thought of a way, but she did not tell them what it was, because she had to ask Ozma's consent first. So she only said, If you promise not to worry about me, I will go to the Land of Oz this very afternoon, and I will make you a promise as well. You will both see me here again before you have time to leave this farm. Unfortunately, that day isn't far away now, her uncle sadly replied. I did not tell you about this until I had to. If you are sure your fairy friends will give you a home, it will be best for you to go to them now. Dorothy kissed her aunt and uncle and went upstairs to her little room in the attic with Toto. Toto was a cute little dog with big brown eyes and loved Dorothy dearly. She had her own clothes, but didn't pack anything because she knew she would not need them where she was going. She sat down on the broken chair, which was the only one in the room. She held Toto in her arms and waited patiently until the clock struck 4. Then she made the secret signal that had been agreed upon between her and Ozma. Uncle Henry and Aunt Em waited downstairs. They were uncomfortable and a little excited. They lived in this gray, boring world, and it seemed impossible their niece could vanish from this place and travel to a fairy fantasy land. They watched the stairs, which was the only way Dorothy could get out of the farmhouse. They watched for a very long time. They heard the clock strike 4, but there was no sound from above. 4:30 came and went, and they were becoming impatient to wait any longer. Softly, they crept up the stairs to the door of the girl's room. Dorothy! Dorothy! They called. There was no answer. They opened the door and looked in. The room was empty. Story summary. Uncle Henry was going to lose the farm to the bank because he was not making enough money to pay the bank. When he told Em, she wanted to move away to find work somewhere else. They were worried that they could not take Dorothy with them, but Dorothy said she would go to the Land of Oz if she had to leave. Aunt Em and Uncle Henry did not believe Dorothy could go to the fairy fantasy land, but when they looked into her room, she had vanished.